Here are all the leather pieces for this wallet. Besides the leather, we will also receive a sewing kit like this. The sewing kit includes small clips, finger cots, small scissors, needles and a thimble, and a pack of waxed thread. Before stitching, we need to prepare a lighter, which we'll use during the process. When stitching, if needed, you can put on this thimble first. If you feel the needle is a bit slippery while stitching, you can wear these non-slip finger cots. Using these is optional. It depends on your personal preference. First, let's find the longest outer leather piece. We won't need this shorter one for now. Let's take a look here. This end has one horizontal row of holes. The other end has 3 rows. First, we'll stitch the side with the single row of holes. Then find the small rectangular leather pieces. Here we are using the 2 larger ones. We don't need the smallest one yet. This smallest one is even smaller than the transparent piece. We won't use it for now. We'll use this largest rectangle and this transparent piece. Let's stitch it here, aligning it with the inner row of holes on the large piece. We won't stitch the outermost holes on both sides yet. We are stitching this inner row. We'll use the brown waxed thread. Measure the thread to be 5 times the length of the stitching area. Now let's thread the needle. To thread it, pass the thread through the needle eye normally, then pull out a short section. Use the point of the needle to pierce through the middle of that short section, like this. Then pull both ends tight to lock it in place. Thread the needle on the other end too. The method is the same. When stitching here, the holes on the small piece don't match the number of holes on the large piece. The large piece has 1 extra hole here. So, for the first stitch, go through the large piece only. For the second stitch, go through the first hole of the small piece and the second hole of the large piece. The 2 needles should be in adjacent holes. Then take the needle from the first hole and pass it through the second hole. Then bring it in through the third hole. Now take the needle that was in the second hole and pass it out through the third hole. And then bring it in through the fourth hole. When stitching this hole, which is the third hole of the small piece, and the fourth hole of the large piece, we need to add this piece. This transparent piece then stitch sequentially following the holes. Continue stitching along the holes like this until you reach the last hole of the large piece. After finishing the holes on one small leather piece, go directly to the holes of the next piece. Just follow the hole alignment to stitch. After this leather piece is stitched, there is still one empty hole on the large piece below. We need to stitch this empty hole as well. Just stitch through that single layer of leather here. After stitching all the holes, we need to backstitch 2 holes to secure it. Leave the excess thread on the back side of the leather. Cut it with the small scissors. Note when cutting the waxed thread, leave about 2 to 3 millimeters of thread end. Don't cut it too short. Then use a lighter to gently melt the excess thread end. This part is now finished. Now let's find the leather pieces for this section. Find these specific pieces. It is stitched like this. This short one goes down here and here. Then this small rectangle goes here. And there's this outer row too. Here we take 40 centimeters of waxed thread. We will stitch this section. First, stitch the top row here. Stitch here. The holes on these 2 rows align perfectly. The number of holes is the same. The stitching method is exactly the same as what we did before. After stitching all holes on both sides, backstitch 2 holes. Leave the excess thread on the back side of the leather. Cut the thread and melt the end with a lighter. Now find this piece. Using the exact same method as this one, stitch this section. Once both are stitched, they look like this. Now take the small rectangle and place it underneath. We will stitch the outer perimeter here. Observe the large piece while stitching. The top still has one extra hole on each side, meaning the first stitch and the last stitch are on the large piece alone. For the thread length here, measure 5 times the length of the stitching part. We'll add this later. After stitching here, we will add this rectangular piece. The first stitch is just on the large piece. For the second stitch, add the small leather piece. After stitching the 2 holes of this card slot piece, add the small leather piece at the next hole. Then just continue stitching. Following this sequence, stitch all the way back to here. After stitching all holes on both sides, backstitch 2 holes. Leave the excess thread on the back side. Cut the thread and melt the end. After that, find these 2 small strips. Let's stitch here first. 30 centimeters of wax thread is enough here. First, stitch all the holes around the perimeter. After stitching the outer loop, stitch diagonally like this into the hole on the opposite corner. Then stitch 1 vertical stitch. Once at this hole, go to the other opposite corner. The diagonal cross in the middle is now stitched. After stitching, leave the thread ends on the back. Then stitch this one to look exactly like the one on the left. Once both are done, they look like this. Now let's stitch this small strip. This small strip is stitched here. There is a U-shape here. We'll stitch here. These 2 pieces only overlap in this small area. For the non-overlapping parts, stitch the leather piece by itself. The thread length here should be 5 times the circumference. Let's align the holes first before stitching. Start stitching from this hole on the large piece. This hole corresponds to... Let's look from the middle hole, starting from the hole at the longest point here. Turn from here and count to the 4th hole, which is this one. It's the first hole of this piece. The holes here overlap perfectly. Put the second needle through the bottom. After stitching up to here, there are no more holes on the large piece. But we still have a needle on the back side. We need to pass this back needle through to the front. Pass it back through the hole it came out of. But bring it out between the two layers of leather. Don't pull it all the way through to the front face. Then for the subsequent holes, stitch the small piece by itself. Remember to pull the waxed thread tight while stitching, otherwise the stitches will be loose. Then follow the holes and stitch along. Just finish stitching this loop. Stitch back to here. When stitching the last hole here, pass through both layers of leather. Pass through to the large piece here. Pass back through here. We have finished all the holes up to here. But since there are 2 layers of leather, we continue, stitching forward 2 more holes. Then here, do a back stitch. Cut off the excess thread and melt the end with a lighter. After stitching this, flip it over. Find this leather piece. We will stitch this part. This section, it's not stitched continuously here. There is a gap in the middle. Let's stitch this segment. This part of the large piece corresponds to this part here. Pay attention here while stitching. We are sewing only 2 layers together. But before stitching, check the holes on the large piece first. In this middle section, there are holes at the bottom, but no holes at the top. Align the position properly before stitching. Stitch this segment here, just these two pieces. There are no holes on the large piece here. The thread length should be 3 times this distance. We're using black waxed thread here. Here, the large leather piece has one more hole than the piece above. So for the first hole, stitch through this piece only, stitch it by itself, starting from the second hole of the large piece. Add this leather piece. It looks like this. Then stitch along the holes until the last hole. After stitching all holes, backstitch 2 holes. Cut the excess thread and melt the end. After this part is stitched, let's stitch this part. The method is exactly the same as the other side. Still 2 layers of leather. Don't stitch through the main body yet. Once both sides are stitched, it looks like this. Now let's stitch the bottom section. There are still no holes in the middle here. Just like the top, only stitch this segment. Thread length is 3 times this distance. Before stitching, let's check the holes. These 2 large pieces have one more hole than the small piece above. You can see it here too. The large piece has one more hole than the small piece. So for the first stitch, just stitch through the 2 large pieces. For the second stitch, include the small piece and go through all 3 layers. Align the first hole of the 2 black large pieces. The side looks like this. Be careful when stitching. Make sure not to pierce the wrong hole on the large piece. Then stitch along the holes until the last one. After stitching holes on both sides, backstitch 2 holes. When cutting the thread at the end here, because the edge of the leather is right here, you might accidentally burn it. So keep the excess thread on this side. Then use the same method to stitch this segment. When stitching this remaining segment, align the first holes of the large pieces first. Stitch the 2 large pieces at the first hole. After aligning here, there will be a bulge here. It is normal to have this part here. It doesn't matter. Follow the holes and continue stitching the rest. Let's take a look at the finished product. When we open the finished wallet, there will be a groove fold here. This is normal. Once this side is stitched, it looks like this.